Welcome to TalkNorth.com. Thanks for listening. 2 quick promos. BiteSquad.com all this week. 10% off if you use the promo code HOCKEY. Bite Squad app, BiteSquad.com, promo code HOCKEY. Also, SodaStick.com. Use the promo code YouBetcha to get free shipping on any size order. Great local sports-themed apparel. BiteSquad.com, SodaStick.com. Thanks very much. I'm not sure this is right. I'm at spring training and Roy Smalley isn't. That's not really the way the world's supposed to work, but it is working.
It's so wrong.
It's so wrong on so many levels. I should be at an ink factory, and Roy should be down here at spring training, and maybe we'll make the world work that way someday. But we're stuck with it today. So we're going to start the show with a little bit of a change. Usually, I play dumb because I'm qualified and ask Roy questions about baseball. Today, Roy's going to actually ask me what I'm seeing down here. We'll also get to some of the new Major League Baseball rule changes that are pretty fascinating, really. This is Roy Smalley's Chin Music, part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. This is our baseball show. We have a ton of shows going out. Check out TalkNorth.com. Subscribe at iTunes, your favorite podcast app. Download before you listen. Follow us at Talk North Pod on Twitter. If you'd like to advertise with us, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. And thank you to our producer, Brandon Morton. Thanks to Berry Coffee, our longtime sponsor, berrycoffee.com. Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin. We also have a deal with Bite Squad right now. We'll tell you more about that in a bit. But let's start here, Roy. Why don't you ask me what you're interested in hearing about since I've been down here for a week?
Well, I'm just interested in your general impression of things, because it's I see some games, parts of games here and there. I'm reading the box scores every day. I'm trying to get a sense of who's doing what, and get a good sense from what you and Lavelle and Phil Miller are writing about. But beyond that, I mean, what are you feeling? What are you seeing and feeling?
I feel a guarded optimism, and you can get fooled by a lot of things in spring training, including the atmosphere around a team. I've been around teams that thought they were going to be really good and fell on their faces, including a few years ago. It feels like down here the Twins are in a pretty good spot, because we've seen them fail to live up to expectations many times. We've also seen them exceed expectations when there are low expectations many times. I think the general consensus I'm getting from Twins players, Twins front office, scouts from other teams, national baseball writers, experienced people, is that Cleveland's got a great rotation, but the Twins might have the better overall roster. And if Buxton breaks out, and if Martin Perez is for real, and Romero's really good in the bullpen, and they have somebody to close games, and Blake Parker's looked good so far, there's this sense that this team really could challenge for a division title this year. And I'm not sure I expected to feel that when I came down here.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because on paper it looks like that's what everybody should feel, to me. And we talked about this a little bit last week, and you just hit the nail on the head, whether you meant to or not. You went through all the ifs. And actually, you didn't even go through all of the.
No, I didn't go through any of them, really.
And the biggest difference between teams that come out of spring training as bona fide contenders and a team like the Twins in this case is that so many of the key players on contending, just de facto contending teams, have a track record that you can point to and say, okay, this is kind of the total upside, and this is kind of what the downside is. So the range is X, and that range is really good. We know we can count on that. And we have not seen, that from all of the Twins players yet. We've seen some, we've seen Eddie Rosario. I think we can count on that a really good range for him at the plate, for example. Nelson Cruz, we can probably count on 30 home runs. It may not happen. He's 38 years old. It may not happen, but I think the odds are in his favor. Elsewhere, there are ifs, and if all the ifs are, turn out to be positive, I think they could win the division. I think it's a good bet that they win the division. Biggest ifs are Buxton and Romero. You mentioned those guys, and if those guys become stars, they'll win the division. And if Kepler doesn't take the next step, and Buxton doesn't take the next step, and Scope is Brewer's Scope and not Orioles Scope, and there's all these things that could happen. That's just performance related. That's going to determine their season. You mentioned Martin Perez the same way. Pineda is a real alluring if, all this stuff. The teams that are going to win, they come out and you say, I know what Kluber's going to do, and I know what this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy are going to do. I think Cleveland's vulnerable this year in their lineup to a Twins lineup that achieves what it could, but you kind of know what you're going to get from Cleveland, and we don't. I think we need one more year of knowing that from the Twins.
Yeah, and one of the most interesting experience I had down here was, I walked up to Buxton. I've known Buxton since basically they drafted him. I spent time with him and his family. I've done a lot of stories on him. And he's always been just this incredibly polite, deferential young man. Maybe some as a player, too deferential sometimes, too tentative, too willing to listen to everybody. So I walked up to him and we had a long talk, and he was really kind of defiant in the conversation. He was saying, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm through. I'm through taking certain kinds of advice. I'm just going to go be the athlete and the player I can be." And it was completely, out of character from what I had seen from him before. Then I talked to other writers and other people around. And they said he actually hasn't even been very friendly this spring with some people, like Lavelle. I mean, nobody gets mad at Lavelle, for God's sake. But he kind of came in, and his first chat with the writers was kind of pretty abrupt, if not surly. So I just think it's really interesting to see his change of attitude to a much more aggressive attitude, like, I need to get this done now. I'm going to make it happen right now. And then he has also had a big spring, 4 home runs already. He's hit some good pitching as well as crushed some bad pitching. He's hitting the ball. His home runs are traveling a long way. So I get the sense that all that is good stuff, with the caveat that whatever your attitude is, if you don't identify the right pitch to hit, you're dead.
Well, on balance, I would say I love the attitude change. I really do. The net effect, the net of my analysis on that would be very positive. I'll love it if he plays with a chip on his shoulder. I think he'll play better. I think he'll enjoy it. Not that he's not going to have fun, but I think the chip on the shoulder and a bit of defiance that you've described is a great thing for Byron Buxton. And you wrote a nice article about that, about his that attitude. And the only thing that I'll disagree with for him, and I think his attitude is the right thing, and if it can really be the case that you can get paralysis, from analysis and as a hitter, and you're just hearing too many things or hearing things that you can't translate, to what you can do physically. And so you just say, look, I'm going to be who I am, and who Byron Buxton has always been, what got him here, what we expect him to be as a superstar major leaguer. So that's good. The only my caveat, and I'll get a little bit more specific. You're right about it, identifying the pitch to hit and all those kinds and being able to hit it when you get it and all those kinds of things. But very specifically, he said in your article, you quoted him as saying, look, I understand and I know I'm still going to try, to hit the ball in the opposite gap and all of that, but you can't hit a 97-mile-per-hour fastball in the inside part of the plate at the opposite gap, or you can't get around on it if you're thinking right field or right center. So I've got to be able to hit that. I'm just going to do what I know to do. That mindset on balance is going to help him, but that specifically is going to be really, really tough, because if you set up, the only way you can hit a 97-mile-per-hour fastball in the inside corner is to set up, look for that pitch, and be quick to get there. He's right. You're not going to be waiting as long as you would if you're trying to hit the ball the opposite gap and then identifying pitches. You're going to do what we've seen him and Sano do so often, which is start swinging at the first thing they see out of the pitcher's hand, because it looks like halfway to the plate it's going to be a fastball on the inside corner at 97, and then it turns out to be too high, or where they have a hard time hitting it, or it turns out to be a slider away. And when you're trying to hit the inside fastball to your pull field, you're vulnerable to about 7 other pitches and locations, trajectories, and all of that. If you're trying to hit the ball to the opposite gap, then you're going to be good on 6 or 7 locations and trajectories. You're going to be vulnerable to that 97-mile-an-hour fastball inside. So you got to pick your spots. But if you go up there, if he goes up there every time, good attitude, defiant attitude, chip on his shoulder or not, and he's more worried about the 97-mile-an-hour fastball in the inside corner than he is the other 6 or 7 locations and trajectories that he might and probably will get, then it's going to be more of the same. So we'll see how that works. But like I said, on balance, that attitude for him and trusting that athletic ability, which is unbelievable, which is otherworldly, that will probably treat him very well.
It's funny. I was standing there talking to him, and I said, I said, hey, a lot of people I know who know hitting say you're at your best when you drive the ball to right center. And he said, and that's when he gave me that quote. And I was sitting there thinking, I know exactly what Roy's going to say about this.
Well, look, I mean, I wanted the ball in the inside corner too, and I wanted to pull it, and I went to 2 strikes a lot trying to get that pitch. And I could have done 2 things in my career better. I could have looked for, figured out pitchers a little better, looked for off-speed pitches, and gotten really good at hitting off-speed pitches, looking for them. And I could have been a little bit less pull conscious with 2 strikes. And I struck out a fair amount. I walked about the same amount of times that I struck out. And the reason was because I took a lot of pitches trying to get that fastball on the inside part that I wanted. And I also fouled off a bunch of pitches to spoil, 2-strike counts. Ultimately, the 2-strike counts ended up oftentimes in walks or strikeouts, and they happened about the same amount of time. I think I know what I'm talking about there, and he's going to want to set up to hit fastballs, that 97-mile-an-hour fastball in the inside corner periodically. He's going to want to do it 2-0 and 3-1, first ball pitch. All fine. It's all fine. It's all good because he can hit that pitch and he can hit it 450 feet. As can Sano. But 2 things about that. I've already said one of them. You're vulnerable to so many other pitches. The odds aren't in your favor if that's the only thing you're setting up to hit. And secondly, as good as big league pitchers are, and what gets them to the big leagues is their ability to throw the ball where they want to throw it most times. The inside corner is hard for them to hit. They don't do it all that much, and it's either inside off the plate for a ball, and now that's a bad thing, for the pitcher, good thing for a hitter, or it leaks out over the plate, and they miss over the plate, and then that miss turns out to be over the fence, and that's a bad thing for a pitcher. And so they don't really like coming in there all that much. So there are several levels of reasons why a guy with his kind of talent, I'm not trying to take left field away from him. I'm not trying to take looking for fastballs from the middle of the plate to the inside corner away from him where he can drive the ball to his pull field. Just saying that the odds are with you in most counts, not all, but in most counts, if you're a little bit more whole field conscious rather than left field at 97-mile-an-hour conscious.
Right, absolutely. Let's talk about Martin Perez and the rules changes. Do want to thank BerryCoffee.com. Berry Coffee, I think people have seen the Berry Coffee trucks. They've seen the logo. They've seen Berry Coffee packets from the old days. The modern version of Berry Coffee is they have any kind of coffee you could possibly want. They have Berry Coffee blends. They have Caribou, Dunn Brothers, Peace Coffee, Starbucks, City Kid Java, Seattle's Best.